Live. Prof, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. The new numbers have just come out and they've changed slightly, right? Because we're seeing an increase in infections again. So let's talk about this yo-yo in terms of the numbers going up and down. Why is that?
Yes, good evening, Shahan, and thank you for having me, over the show. Yes, we keep on seeing this, and really that has got to do a lot with the testing patterns. That's why you will find that in most of our reporting, we always look at the past 7 years, so what we call the 7-day moving average, because at least that gives you, a few days more to compare with. So we're not surprised seeing this. And we know that, for example, over the weekends, there's hardly any, testing that gets done. Well, there is testing, but it's markedly decreased compared to during the week. And what often happens is that the catching up gets seen, by Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday. Then we get, back into the weekend. So really, I think what we really need to concentrate on would be to then look at the 7-day, moving average and see what patterns. And sometimes to even look at in the last 7 days what has been happening. That gives us a better view of where the pandemic is going within the country.
Yeah, the unrest that we saw in the country 3 weeks ago, are we seeing any infections from back then showing up now or not?
So when we look at the unrest, actually, and you see how, especially KZN, because I suppose, for Gauteng, because the numbers had been so high previously, when we reached the peak, of the third wave in Gauteng. So we didn't see a lot of the impact of the unrest in Gauteng. But in KZN, it was very clear that firstly, what we saw was this, drastic drop in testing, and we're now seeing the increase in testing. But as to whether this increase, where is it going to take us, and does it really reflect, infections that could have happened during the unrest? It is very difficult to tell, Shanti, especially because, remember, it was just Gauteng that was ahead, insofar as the wave is concerned. So the province like KZN, and we're only seeing, a Western Cape now, reaching very high, cases. So that might be a delay in the wave of KZN, and therefore it's going to be difficult to identify whether the increase we're seeing now, is it attributed to the unrest or not, and it was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, of course. So let's talk about the Western Cape then, because there was no unrest there. Well, not on any large scale like we saw in the two provinces. We are seeing the increase there. The province is saying it's at the peak of the third wave. How does this work? We saw Gauteng dominate in terms of the infection rate for this third wave, and then slowly things drop here and pick up in the coastal areas. Why is that?
Well, firstly, we know that there are these differences that we're seeing in the provinces just across the country. As to what causes that, it becomes very difficult to actually explain. But what we know is that once then the wave starts, we are able to see, depending obviously on the response to the wave, how high that wave is going to go. And right now, when we're looking at the Western Cape, for instance, we're seeing that it is actually approaching the peak of the second wave that that we saw in the Western Cape, and we're sitting at just a few cases per 100,000 compared to the peak of the second wave, and that's one thing that we know. So we're seeing definitely increase in cases. Might this be related to the taxi violence, or what is actually happening? What is the behavior of the communities in Cape Town? That's one thing we need to look at. But obviously, the second thing that has been a concern with this third wave has been the Delta variant. And we know that actually it has been the Delta variant that's driving the third wave. So we're seeing the same Delta variant in the Western Cape, because right now, looking across the country, the Delta variant is sitting at about 85%. So it has overtaken the Beta. And so really, those are that's what we're seeing in the Western Cape. Now, whether that might actually be because of the recent 100%, unrest in the Western Cape, we don't know. But we definitely have seen a delay in the third wave in the Western Cape. And right now we're seeing quite a steep, increase in number of cases. That then is going to mean it's important to ensure that the province is actually able to respond insofar as, the number of hospitalizations are concerned.
Yeah. So while I have you, of course, we have entered adjuster level 3 of the lockdown. And of course, some of the restrictions have been eased, in particular for bars. And we've seen people take advantage of the situation on the second weekend. We've seen bars packed to capacity to a very worrying level. And that's going to lead us to a fourth wave, right? What are we looking at in terms of projections when it comes to that?
It's actually the challenge, and we really just don't know how we can get the message across to the population of the country of South Africa, because obviously we all know now that really what is driving the infections is mainly, apart from the variant, is mainly the behavior of the behaviors of people, and so. And you are asking actually an important question, especially because we're actually approaching a long weekend. And so really, once then people begin not to adhere to the interventions, then the potential of actually increasing number of cases definitely, is going to increase. And so, you're going to find that we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we're playing this yo-yo, people get careless and they don't take the restrictions. If we're not, if we don't have a variant, we have these high numbers, then we have to put on restrictions, but really we just need to make sure how can we control this. And we do know that really one of the major answers to an extent is really going to be vaccination. And we're still not where we should be. We're far from that actually insofar as vaccination is concerned. So really it's going to be a message to the communities to make sure that they really adhere to non-pharmaceutical interventions, they avoid these big crowds. Otherwise, then, we're going to end up having this on and off, and we really cannot survive, cannot survive as a country doing such.
All right,
until we've got enough people that are vaccinated.
Yeah. So since you mentioned vaccines, I was trying to stay away from it because I know you're not the co-chair on the vaccines, but you brought yourself to this point, right? You say that it's not good enough, and I agree. Our vaccination drive is not good enough, but government keeps making it seem as if we're doing such sterling work. To what point do we get where we say this has to happen faster and we, sift through the nonsense and the fake peddling of numbers and vaccines that we are giving to the public? We need to say that we need to get this done now and it has to happen by a certain time for us to even avoid a fourth and fifth wave.
Mm-hmm. So really, when we're looking at vaccines, right now, it's a matter of looking at, is it a half full glass, is it a half empty glass? Compared to where we were, half empty, sorry, what did I say? Sorry. Yeah, compared to where we were and where we are today, there's been a definite improvement. I think, we need to actually appreciate that, because right now we're sitting at where we are vaccinating more than 190, I think about around 190,000 a day, but definitely it is not enough, because we've been saying we need to get to 300, we need to get to 250, but there has been a significant improvement, but it is not good enough. Now, if we're looking at the numbers, yes, right now we're sitting at just over 7.7 million, people who've received a vaccination. But if you're looking at those that have been fully vaccinated, it's just over 3 million. And when you're looking at the population of the country, I think that's sitting at just over 7.5, if not 7.7%. So we're still a long way to go. So really what is needed is ensuring that we're vaccinating. Can we get to 350,000, as soon as possible? How long is it going to take for us to get to that and ensure that that is maintained, so that, especially now, we are, if you're looking at the majority, looking at the number of cases, we are, yes, downhill, because this was driven by Gauteng numbers. We are on the downhill of the wave, but as we have already mentioned, that not for the Western Cape. But also, what's going to happen is that when we then, there's a decrease in infections, we know that we are likely to probably get a fourth wave. And the question is going to be, by the time we get to that, how much vaccination would have actually gone in? And that's why we need to make sure that the department really, as well as the private sector, makes use of this window that we have to ensure that in the next 5-6 months, there's been a significant improvement on the number of people that have been vaccinated in the country.
Yeah, I'll say it because I know you can't and won't. I think it's been pretty pathetic. So let's talk about schools. This is another thing that shows about the lack of planning on our government's part. We knew that primary school children were going to go back to classrooms full-time by July, August. That's happened, and now the minister comes and says, oh, we have a problem with social distancing. She should have known this. Plans should have been made. Now children are being turned away.
Yeah, actually, I couldn't agree with you more. And really, one point that I really just want to make is that, when we look at some of these advices that we provide, we really look at the data and we provide that scientific direction. The rest then really typically has got to be taken care of by government. And so I agree with you that really, and especially when it comes to schools, we have had challenges in education in this country for quite a long time. There's been complaints about the conditions of schools, and it really does get frustrating when we get to this level now, and then it becomes a problem. So I really couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, I mean, we still have an issue of pit toilets going to a court today. Yeah, so trying to get the COVID-19 social distancing right is a big ask for this basic education department. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. I always do like speaking to you, especially how frank you are when it comes to these issues. Professor Koleka Mlisana, COVID-19 Ministerial Advisory Committee Co-Chairperson.